we have Marge Bruchac, who is an Abenaki historian and storyteller, Wanda Heading-Grant, the Associate Provost for Multicultural Affairs and Academic Initiatives at the University of Vermont, Sheila Morris, the President of the Vermont Franco-Canadian Genealogical Society, Brent Bjorkman, the Executive Director of the Vermont Folklife Center, and Jacob, it's all mixed up in my thing here, Jacob Bogre, the Executive Director of the Association of Africans Living in Vermont. It's wonderful to have our newest Vermonters represented here as well, and Tracey Tsugawa of the Vermont Human Rights Commission. So I'd like to start with Marge Bruchac. One, she's got to leave a little early. She's got to leave at 1 o'clock, but also her people were clearly the very earliest to be here in this region. Marge.
Thank you, Fran. Kwakwa ni rabani rabaskwa tonika dononzi, mdluizi magalit wa banakiak. Tautsi kutsi olioni, miziwi niguet kam migwazo nigoniak. I start by greeting you, hoping that you are well, identifying myself, and then remembering that my connections are not just in the present, but I offer thanks to those who came before, to those who are with us now, and to those who come in the future. Miziwi niguet kam migwazo nigoniak, all of my relations. It's always hard to figure out where to start talking about colonization, especially in a place like Vermont. And when I took a glance at the list of Vermont values a few moments ago, I thought, well, geez, we know where those came from. Because that whole notion of independence and self-sovereignty and responsibility and small scale, that's how Native people managed to live in this landscape for more than 12,000 years, leaving so light a footprint that when the first Europeans showed up, they thought this place was empty. They called it a wilderness. And the truth of the matter is that for Native people living, not just in what we call Vermont, because Vermont is an artificial border, living in what we call Indakina, our homeland, that includes Vermont, New Hampshire, parts of upstate New York, parts of southern Canada, parts of northern Massachusetts. That large, large territory was so well known and so well loved and so well managed, although managed isn't really the right word, so well inhabited in a reciprocal relationship between all the beings, not just the Olnabak, the two-leggeds, but the Abaziak, the trees, the Awasak, the animals, the Namasak, the fish people, the Sipsak, all the creatures. That whole relationship was so interconnected and so reciprocal that it's hard for us today to imagine it. And it's so interesting to me to see that we're trying to get closer to that. That even in the midst of modernity, we're all saying, how can we become more connected with nature? How can we become more connected with each other? The other thing that makes speaking about Vermont difficult is that the legacy of colonization is not just present in the way the commemorations of the Champlain encounter are constructed, but it's present in even the way we relate to one another. So I am a person of mixed blood, and that mixed ancestry is part of the legacy of colonization, but it is also part of the legacy of indigenous communities who didn't identify one another by strict blood quantum, but identified one another by kinship. Who are your family? Who are your relatives? It was natural for Native people before Europeans arrived to intermarry between different tribes and different tribal bands. And kinship was constructed by who your mother's kin were, and where your father's kin lived, and where your rooted community was. And so in the colonial era, it was actually possible for people who came from an entirely different tribe, even people who came from Europe, to be adopted in and integrated into Abenaki communities. So one of our most famous chiefs, Joseph Louis Gill, was born a white man. But it's the way he fought for us that made him an Abenaki. So in the present, probably the worst problem that we struggle with in the present is this notion of recognition of what is an Indian, what are we as Indian people, who are our communities, what is our relationship to the towns in which we live, to the state government, to the federal government, to other indigenous communities. It's interesting to me that other indigenous people recognize us even when the state government doesn't. It's interesting to me that I've now lived through several iterations of governors deciding that we did or did not exist as Abenaki people. and watching the present governor sign legislation that I helped to advise on, and watching him cross out the part that said that the Abenaki were the Aboriginal people of Vermont, to change us into generic Native Americans. So there are many, many things I could say, but I'd like to move on to other speakers by saying just one thing, is that in the vision for the future, my deepest hope is that the diversity that Native people recognized in their own communities and among other Native communities, I would hope that that diversity could be respected in the future, and that we could perhaps indigenize our relationships so that we have more fluid rather than more fixed boundaries between peoples. So we have a deeper sense of kinship, and so we have more options for exchange and trade. I'll leave it there.